one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. The prayer this morning will be offered by the good delegate representing Charles and Prince George's counties.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let us pray. Lord, we come before you today, Lord, to say thank you, Lord. We thank you once again for another opportunity to be in your midst, Lord. We ask that you just continue to guide us and keep us in your strength. And this is the prayer that we're going to pray today, and the General Assembly would say,
Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? If so, the clerk will take the call. There being 124 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read a journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, February the 22nd, 2025.
Recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Moves so much be considered the reading of the journal.
So ordered. Petitions, memorials, and other papers. Introduction of House bills. The clerk will read the bills and their committee assignments.
House Rule 1531, Delegate Simmons, House Rules. House Rule 1532, Delegate Howard, House Rules by order of Sylvia Seeger, Chief Clerk.
The clerk will read the bond initiatives and the committee assignment.
Introductory House Bond Initiatives number 51, February 23rd, 2025, referred appropriations. Introductory House Bond Initiatives number 52, February 23rd, 2025, referred to appropriations.
House resolutions recognizing the good delegate from Howard County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and good morning, colleagues. Today is one of my favorite days here in the General Assembly because you will see hundreds of women who wearing pink and green walking the halls, and some who will be coming to visit you because it is Alpha Kappa Alpha Day at the Capitol. Alpha Kappa Alpha Incorporated is the first African American sorority founded on January 15, 1908 on the campus of Howard University. Today, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority is an international organization boasting over 360,000 members in graduate and undergraduate chapters in 12 nations and territories, including the United States, South Africa, and Korea. Service and sisterhood are the cornerstone of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, with our national agenda being soaring to greater heights of service and sisterhood. Alpha Kappa Alpha women are known for leading the forefront of change in education, advocacy, social justice, and touching many, many lives across the globe. Like our famous soror and poet Maya Angelou said, quote, "You have no idea what your legacy will be because your legacy is every life you touch." Alpha Kappa Alpha women break barriers in every aspect of society, and you've heard some of this before from my colleague and soror, but a few names bear mentioning, like Mae Jemison, the first African American astronaut and a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority; Lisa Leslie, the first woman to dunk in the WNBA, an Alpha Kappa Alpha soror; Ella Fitzgerald, the first lady of song and most popular female jazz singer for over 50 years, an Alpha Kappa Alpha woman; and of course, our very own Kamala Harris, an Alpha Kappa Alpha woman. Madam Speaker, permission to use delegates' names?
Permission granted.
Colleagues, today, delegates and sorors, Kim Taylor, and if you could please stand. Delegate soror Jennifer White. Delegate soror Pam Queen. Delegate soror Cherie Sample Hughes. Delegate soror Janelle Wilkins. Delegate Soror Karen Tolles. Delegate Soror Terry Hill. Delegate Soror Sandy Bartlett. Delegate Soror Edith Patterson. And myself, Madam Speaker, Delegate Soror Vanessa Atterbury, would like to welcome the hundreds of women who are here today, and they are in the balcony behind me. And I would like to give a special shout out to my favorite soror, my mother, Rosalind Atterbury. And colleagues, if you could please join me in welcoming our soror, Prince George's County Council member Ingrid Watson, a former member of this body and soror, Prince George's Council member Juanica Fisher, and the 27th North Atlantic Regional Director, Irma Barron. Please welcome Alpha Kappa Alpha women to the General Assembly.
Will the reading clerk please read the resolution in full?
Be it hereby known to all that the House of Delegates of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated in recognition of your service, advocacy, and steadfast leadership on statewide issues during the annual AKA Day at the Capitol. The entire membership extends best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution to be presented on this 26th day of February 2025.
Special order calendar number 13. Clerk will read.
House Bill 6, State Department of Assessments and Taxation and Department of General Services, Property Appraisal Aids, Geographic Images. Favorite report is amended and adopted.
Recognizing the maker of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment number 993225.
Amendment number 1.
Moves so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Body, this is a simple, common sense, 8-page amendment. In all seriousness, this amendment is to require a physical inspection. We talked about this yesterday on the floor. We talked about drones. We talked about aerial footage. I think there's some language in the bill regarding oblique. Not sure what an oblique is, but aerial photographic imagery. This amendment authorizes the taxpayer. Everyone in this body knows that taxes are going up, assessments are increasing. My office is getting bombarded with calls regarding tax assessments. This was a pilot program in Frederick County and Anne Arundel County. tax assessments are going up. Sometimes to the tune of 25%, 30%. We talk about affordable housing on this floor. We talk about our aging experienced population, fixed incomes. This bill is only going to affect those people the worst. We talk about our vulnerable population. This is going to increase tax assessments considerably in this state. I had a chance to talk to the bill drafter multiple times yesterday. I learned that this could be a $1 billion tax onto Marylanders, our most vulnerable. We talk about people not being able to make utility payments. We talk about mortgage payments. We talk about escrow payments. This is going to increase all of that to make it more unaffordable to live in the great state of Maryland. This simple amendment just gives the taxpayer the right to have a physical inspection. That's all we're asking for, a physical inspection. When we talked about how many people appeal their taxes, and we talked about a process, when people appeal their taxes, sometimes to the tune of 75 and 80%, this is going to help them have a physical inspection of that property, not relying on oblique, aerial, photographic imagery. All we're asking is for State Department, Tax and Assessment and Taxation to do a physical assessment. That's all this asks for. And I ask the body to accept this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Floor Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my good friend from Anne Arundel County who got me this H-page amendment 4 minutes before session. I've taken some quick notes here on the request, and contrary to what my good friend has suggested, this would be an incredible overhaul of our entire property assessment process. So I'm going to ask this body to resist this amendment, and I want to share a few reasons why. One, this amendment would require a complete restructuring of our appeals process. Every single property owner, commercial or residential, in the state of Maryland has the right to a property assessment appeal. In fact, they don't just have one, they have three. They can apply for a supervisory appeal, where SDAT will internally look at its own property assessment and determine whether or not that assessment was accurate. Two, they can go to a third-party property assessment appeals board called PTAB, where they can then make their case and have a third-party board review that assessment. And then three, they can file in Maryland State Tax Court if they're still unhappy with the first two results, and then make their case directly in court about why their assessment is wrong. And it's also important to note, because the good delegate mentioned how concerned he was about our Maryland taxpayers as I am, all three steps for residential property tax owners is free. It is 100% free for you as a taxpayer in Maryland to go out and appeal your property assessment if you feel like it has been unduly charged. This, however, would redo that process. It would suggest that there are now two different versions of our appeals process, that there is an extended wait period for individuals who wish to seek an appeal based on what type of assessment that they have received. The amendment would create new process mandates for SDAT and restructure the way it conducts property assessment notifications. We already have two counties for the last 9 years that have been using aerial imagery, have been using oblique aerial imagery to conduct these property assessments. That's by state code. Counties have also chosen to use this methodology. 7 other counties specifically have chosen to use this process and fund it themselves in their own individual jurisdictions. Multiple jurisdictions already use this. What we're now suggesting is that SDAT has to create a whole secondary process by which it notifies an individual property owner which we've never done before in all of the counties and local jurisdictions that already do it. It suggests that now we need to notify them that somehow they've had this aerial photography used versus another assessment method, and that therefore they should be then granted some special leeway because of it, suggesting that something's wrong. Which brings me to point number 3, which is that countless studies have shown that using oblique aerial imagery is actually more effective, more accurate than the traditional methods that SDAT has been able to use in years past to conduct your property assessment. They show a lower rate of appeals on assessments because of that. They have shown time and time again that if we use technology in an effective and smart way, that we can actually do the work for the people of Maryland in a more effective and responsible way. Just for a side note, I just want to mention 24,000 appeals were filed last year. I want everybody to kind of wrap their head around that. 95% of all properties in Frederick County and 92% of all properties in the good delegate from Anne Arundel's counties properties were used aerial imagery to conduct their appeals. If we go statewide and suggest that every appeal requires an on-site visit, 24,000 last year visits. I don't know if you all know how many people work at SDAT, but I did a quick ask for the number. It's about 400 people total work at SDAT. 24,000 property visits independently on every single appeal that comes across our state. It would be absolutely impossible. Impossible, not just impracticable. And we would be stuck in an incredibly difficult situation. The last point I would like to make, Madam Speaker, is I encourage all of us, we passed this bill last year. I encourage all of us to resist this amendment, to pass the bill in the posture that it was in last year, and follow my good friend from Anne Arundel County's lead, who voted for this bill last year in the exact posture it's in with you today. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Minority Whip.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Could the good gentleman from Frederick County please rise?
Floor leader.
Madam Speaker.
So, Delegate, which county had the highest assessments in the state?
I wouldn't have that information.
Frederick County.
Right.
Which county just increased the tax assessment against properties in the state?
I'm sorry, ask the question again.
Which county just increased their property tax rate in the state?
I'm sure,
Got it.
I can't speak for every county. Frederick County had
Frederick County. So I rise in support of this amendment, and I'm going to tell you why. So I live in a county, which, by the way, is the largest geographical county in the state. They had the highest property assessments in the state. The county executive just raised the property tax rate in the county, and now we're allowing drones to fly over someone's property and say, hey, look, they just built a new shed, let's increase the rate. I think it's very fair to allow a property owner who's getting an additional increase over the two they just got to be able to ask questions. Hey, was this taken with a drone? Did someone come out physically to look at my property to see if there were actual improvements on it? That's what the gentleman from Anne Arundel County is getting at, is just fairness. It's fairness for the elderly person on fixed income who just got a 40% tax increase in their tax bill. It's fairness for the people that are low income, that their mortgage increases just went up because their property tax rates were double taxed. That's all we're getting at. I understand it's a process, but for thousands of years, people have come out to properties to see if there are genuine improvements. That's all we're asking for. And what this bill does is it makes permanent the ability to just simply fly a drone over properties and then tax the hell out of them. So with that, I support this amendment. I think it's very reasonable, especially if you're a Frederick County citizen. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Floor leader.
If I can just respond quickly. If you are about tax fairness, this bill, as written, without this amendment, is your vehicle. It is your vehicle. There is countless data that shows that the use of this technology provides a more accurate property assessment for individuals. Again, I encourage the body to resist this amendment.
Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Hartford.
Gentlelady from Hartford, maybe?
Anne Arundel.
Which one? She said
Gentle lady from Harvard.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I just want to make sure everyone heard what the delegate from Anne Arundel said a minute ago. He said it would increase $1 billion of taxes. And I'm just going to read to you from the fiscal note because I know a lot of folks don't bother to read those. Based on the results of the pilot study from Anne Arundel and Frederick, the department estimates the total statewide assessable real property base could increase by approximately $1.25 billion. This is a massive hidden tax increase. So many of you, even the blue people, have been getting a lot of phone calls about the cost of living. A whole lot of them. So if you're in an even moderately squishy district and you are voting for this, you are voting for a $1.25 billion tax increase on your constituents. And that is what we will be absolutely sure to let them know about if you should vote green.
Madam Speaker.
Gentleman from Anne Arundel.
I stand in support of this amendment. It's a simple amendment, and if you think about it, what the floor leader said should hit with everybody. 48,000 people complained about their assessment. And by his rationale, if this is going to be more accurate, then we shouldn't have any appeals because they're going to be so good. They're actually going to go down, and everybody's going to say, woo, great. And if it's so accurate, every realtor in here should call their appraiser right now and say, we don't need you anymore. We got a better way to appraise your house. We got a better way to tell you what the value of your house is. We're going to put it into effect in the state. It's so good. We're going to look at it from 5,000 foot above and tell you what the value of your property is. Not a single person in here would sell a house in that manner because it doesn't accurately reflect what your house is really worth. Not a single one. It doesn't work that way because every house is unique and different. And us throwing this blanket over top of houses and saying, well, we looked at it from well above and we think it's worth this. And you have no way to really proving yourself other than sending the appeals board a piece of paper or an email saying, no, it's only worth this. And they said, no, it's worth this because we saw it in the air. I think the people should have the right to defend what they think the value of their property is. If their property is worth more, they're not going to say anything. If they've got something to hide, they're not going to appeal it. My guess is the people that want to appeal it have proof that their house is not worth what the eye in the sky is saying. This is a common sense amendment, and I push the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The floor leader mentioned something about tax fairness, and this bill is here today for tax fairness. Let's be honest. This bill is not on this floor today if for some reason it actually reduced the taxable assessment that's going to come forward to our citizens. That we know because we're in a $3 billion hole right now, and there's no way a fiscal note like that would ever make it to the floor. So why is it here? Okay, we did a pilot program last year. Frederick County, knock yourself out. Anne Arundel, knock yourself out. Wacomo County, my home county, will get knocked out by a bill just like this. Let me just say to you, I'm a landlord, and I'm seeing these assessments come in, and you may ask, what happens when a property owner gets an assessment that raises 20, 30, 40, or 50%? What happens when they finally get that tax bill after it fully gets phased in? It gets passed on to the customer, or it gets passed on to the tenant. Your citizens get hurt when we take a policy like this, as we are in the state of Maryland, and making it easier for the state to raise taxes without having to go through due diligence. I think the maker of the amendment is asking a generic question, which is go through the due diligence, but also understand what's getting ready to happen to the citizens of our state of Maryland when these tax assessments come in fully phased. To the people that are retired, who don't have a mortgage, and frankly, maybe the only thing they have are the tax assessments, when they see those come in, when we see the energy bills that are raising every year, those costs that are falling on people that have to live in our state. Here we have a bill that's being sent to us as a tax fairness bill. Not a shot in the world that I'm going to buy that. not a shot in the world. I support the maker of the amendment who's basically saying this. Pay attention, legislature, what's happening with these assessments. At some point, citizens are going to connect the dots with what's going on in this budget shortfall, what's going on with Kerwin, and how we're going to pass unfunded mandates down to the counties, which relates. Terrible policy to be passing without an amendment like this. Thank you.
Floor leader.
Madam Speaker, thank you, and I appreciate the comments of the body. I would just reiterate to resist this amendment because it would require a fundamental restructuring of the process by which we do our assessments, which are currently offered to every single citizen in the state of Maryland, including the appeals process, which is free to every single citizen in the state of Maryland. I encourage this body to resist the amendment because it is not only unnecessary and burdensome, it would also create and frustrate and actually create a less equitable system for our property assessments. Madam Speaker, thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We talk about affordable housing. We talk about the delay in home ownership. The average first-time home buyer in this state, in this country, is almost in their 30s now because it's unaffordable. Their income levels do not meet the cost of housing. This is going to raise the price. I mentioned this earlier, not to belabor the point. We have our aging and experienced population that are in homes that they've owned for 30 and 40 years. We have some bills, the national level, to help them with increasing cost. This is only going to raise their costs. If you look here at the fiscal note, Montgomery County and Prince George's County get affected the most. And that's concerning when our two largest jurisdictions get hit the most. This is a great amendment that gives our taxpayers options. That's all we're asking for, are options to appeal the process should they do so. The good delegate from Anne Arundel brought up a good point. Why would you appeal the process if you're trying to hide something? That doesn't make any sense to me. However, we've been on this long enough. This is a great amendment. I support the amendment, obviously. And Madam Speaker, I ask the body to move the amendment. Thank you.
Question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Clerk will take the call. The amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 14. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 197, Public Schools, Restorative Practices Schools, Comprehensive Plan. Favorite word is amended, adopted.
Maker of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have some questions for the floor leader.
Floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning.
Good morning. I know we had a very brief conversation yesterday. Can you tell me what restorative practices in schools are? That's apparently what this bill does, House Bill 197 for restorative practices in public schools.
Okay, I did read a rather lengthy paragraph yesterday. Was there something that was missing in there?
Well, I mean, you're a teacher, so I was hoping maybe we could talk this through. I mean, right? I mean, we have obviously a systemic problem in public schools with children that are violent and basically, in many cases, incredibly disruptive. And I might add that it's also in Calvert County. It's not, in no way am I picking on any jurisdiction. It's now in every single school district. So what do we currently do when we have a student, for example, like we had in Calvert County, who hit a teacher? What is currently the practice before this bill?
There are disciplinary procedures and there are legal procedures that can be taken.
Okay. So what we're seeing is basically disciplinary actions. And what are those as opposed to the legal?
Well, every county has different disciplinary procedures based on number of times a student commits an offense, the level of the offense. So I can't outline all 24
Can you give me an example, though, as one of the current things that we do?
Well, one is suspension and expulsion.
Okay. That's rare, though, isn't it?
I don't know, but you asked me for one. Okay. I don't have the numbers, but you asked me to cite one, and I have one for you.
So suspension and expulsion is one of them, which I just haven't seen happen yet, at least not personally. Not that I would know, of course, because I know a lot of it's confidential. But where would the student go if they're expelled?
Home, if they can.
Okay. And since that's such a rare occurrence, when they're kept in school, what is done with them? What is the disciplinary action that is taken?
You started by saying it's rare, but it's not nearly as rare as you think, especially when we break down subgroups. It's much more common among students of color and students who are disabled.
Okay.
So it's not entirely rare, as you say.
So that's not what I asked. What I asked is...
But you made a supposition that I felt had to be clarified.
What supposition was that?
That it's rare, and I don't agree with that.
That it's rare that a child is actually expelled?
Yeah.
And
rare is a subjective term. I mean, we could start to do percentages, but I feel like the body doesn't need to hear us defining what rare means at this point.
Okay. So when a child is kept in the public school system, which is mostly the case, and they are violent and just disruptive beyond belief, what happens to the child? Like, where do they put them? What kind of current
There's a variety
practice?
of things, as I've said before.
Can you give an example, though?
In-school suspension.
I mean, you're a teacher, so I'm trying to get more
Here's
information.
an example, in-school suspension.
Okay. And that would mean that while they're in school, they're put where and they are doing what?
Somewhere else in the building than the classroom, perhaps an isolated area where someone supervises them.
And is that working?
Well, it's not a very good system, in my opinion.
Okay.
It doesn't really change behaviors. Actually, most research shows that it actually exacerbates behaviors.
Okay. So since 2019, the Maryland State Department of Education has engaged in this rehabilitative, restorative, and educational practice to keep children in the school, which this bill is dealing with. Since 2019, the problem has gotten much worse. We know this because in my own county, we have this problem as well. And I know it's statewide because we read all kinds of reports. How will the bill, House Bill 197, change this?
So, first of all, I got to return to a point because I got some data that I didn't think we were going to go for. You should know that nearly 70,000 students were suspended or expelled in Maryland schools last year. Okay. I don't think that's rare, okay? That's a large number of students.
But one of the key words, sir, is suspended, which means most of them were suspended, which means they came back. And I'm not saying that that's good or bad. I'm trying to figure out what is happening in the public school system and elsewhere. To be fair, it's not just the public school system's problem, it's also what's happening at home that's causing so many children to be violent in the classroom.
So I would submit, let's flip the conversation and say, what does this bill want to do? Okay,
that's what I just asked you.
It wants to change the narrative of
how does this bill improve the current practice?
It changes the school culture, and there's evidence, research to prove it, that actually children feel better about being in school, test scores rise, okay, and the gender gap, and not gender, I'm sorry, the gap between protected classes and others, which often is huge, is reduced down to practically zero. So we eliminate those.
So this bill, so you have a child that's in the classroom and they are violent and they're acting out, and this bill then would treat the typical child how? how would things change from
Dep-
current practices?
You're going to get this answer from me repeatedly. It depends on the situation. The
Well,
people
give
who
me
are
a si-
running
give
the
me a
res- the
situation
people who
then.
are running. Let me finish, please. The people who are running the restorative school will decide if that student needs an intervention, or they take responsibility for their actions. They will voluntarily ask whoever might be perceived as the victim if they would like to be part of that. This is a good conversation. Do you have an amendment, sir?
I'm just trying to get, I don't think I'm going to offer the amendment today. I'm just trying to, at the moment, get to what actually is happening in the public school system and how this fixes it, and I just haven't heard that yet. You're just basically saying, well, it's too complicated for me to understand. I can't give you any examples.
Oh, I didn't say that. That's not.
Well,
I didn't say it was too
then
complicated for you to
Can you
understand.
walk me through how this bill is going to fix this systemic problem in the public school system?
So if you need more information, I'm going to direct you to a Washington Post article that was published on September 8th, 2023, titled, "A Program to Cut School Suspensions in Chicago Worked Very, Very Well. Here's How."
Right.
Okay? And in this, they outline how the suspensions were off the charts in the school system. This number of suspensions in that school system went from 58,000 to 13,000 in just a few years with this program.
So what I'm reading is, I'm reading in various different publications about, a juvenile rapist. This is 2025, by the way. Was allowed to return to Maryland school following judge's ruling. Woodlawn student convicted of second-degree assault, allowed back in the school with his victim. There's so many of these, and I'm just trying to figure out, like, when you have a child that's in a public school system and they have a terrible home life, and they're engaging in violence and they're acting out in the public school system, why not send them to some other option, like military boarding school, as we've discussed before? And I know I have a bill in front of your committee that's coming up on Monday. But why not save the child's life by giving them an environment that's structured with actually, parental figures, since they don't have that at home?
That might be
Madam Speaker, if I may.
Thanks.
Yes, go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam
Committee
Speaker.
Chair.
Thank you. And I just want to clarify, if I may, because I think we're talking about two different things. You are talking about, friend, things that fall under the reportable offenses statute. And we have a variety of bills that deal with it, that if you were in our bill hearings yesterday, we had about 4 hours worth of bill hearings related to reportable offenses. When we're talking about restorative practices, we are talking about school suspensions and school expulsions, and we're trying to reduce that, because what we know is that the statistics show that, particularly here in Maryland, as the sub-chair committee correctly stated, young kids of color, particularly our African American boys, and are suspended at a significantly higher rate. And that within that are kids with disabilities that are primarily African American. And so instead of suspending them, we're saying, hey, why don't we try mediation? Why don't we try bringing the family in? Why don't we try sitting down with a counselor and having them understand why that particular behavior was not appropriate? And when we talk about restorative practices, we're not talking about violent behaviors or something that could bring a criminal charge. But we do want to keep our children in schools so that they can receive their education. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just thought I needed to clarify that.
I appreciate that. We're on second reader, Madam Speaker, so of course there's an opportunity on third reader, but clearly I would just finish by saying this. This is a problem that has been happening and worsening since 2019, when there were bills that passed that tried to address this issue. And we've already lost generation after generation by trying to have a one-size-fits-all approach. And we can all talk around this issue as much as we want. We can use administrative language and so forth as much as we want. There's another bill to do this. But the problem is getting worse. And we're losing generation after generation. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Floor Leader.
It's important to point out that this is enabling legislation, and schools that feel like it would work for them can adopt it. There's no requirement here. And so we're not one size fitting all. We're allowing something that might fit at a school to be used there. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Delegate from Hartford.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the chair of the committee's redirect to help us understand what we're talking about. I just want to mention a couple things about restorative practices. I think people might not know where it started and what the idea behind it was. Originally, in the 70s, the idea was you would bring the victim and the perpetrator together to have an opportunity to empathize and connect with the person and sort of rehumanize each other. That is great if the victim consents to it. Obviously, that's helpful. But today, it's kind of taken on a different feel. And as someone who was the great recipient of more than one in-school suspension, I know no one is shocked here. Do you think it worked? That's debatable. I think we're missing some of the bigger pieces, and I think my colleague from Calvert was trying to get at what we're missing in this conversation. I know that the chair was trying to separate, reportable offenses from restorative practices, but we're very concerned, and I know many of you on the other side are also very concerned with teachers leaving the profession because of children in the classroom being so aggressive and violent. I mean, we're now having to pass giant education reform bills that cost billions of dollars to up the pay for teachers. A lot of that is because they don't want to be doing this anymore because they're tired of getting things thrown at them. They're tired of being in the middle of fights. They're tired of children bringing weapons to school. People are tired. The teachers are tired of it. And I know everybody loves a pay increase, but we might find, and I suspect we will, that we will fully implement Kerwin and we will still struggle to retain teachers. And I really believe, and I know many of my colleagues believe, practices like this, encouraging sort of alternative ideas to removing bad children from the classroom, is why we are losing our teachers. So, and there's plenty of research online about how restorative justice has sort of gone off the rails. It's not accomplishing what we want it to accomplish anymore. It's just not holding kids to a high enough standard. That's harmful to them. I know, it's hard when you see your kids struggling to tie their shoes, not to just go tie their shoes for them. And I'm sure no one here is going to be surprised when I tell you I absolutely will not do it for my children. They will learn themselves, or they will not tie their shoes and they will not leave the house. That's how we play it at our house. It's tough love, but it works. I know. I see the majority leader struggling to imagine that. I'll lend you a kid one day, and you can try and teach one of mine how to tie their shoes. It's a blast. Anyways, please, body, this is not about reportable offenses. This is about our teachers leaving the class.
Madam Speaker, point of order. Does delegate have an amendment?
No, I'm just...
You're veering way off of even third reader debate here.
I just said restorative justice like 3 times. There we go. I'll talk again on third reader, but this is important, and our people are tired of it.
Yes, they are. Are there any further amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 15. Clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 249, residential real property, local limits on summoning law enforcement or emergency services. Favorable report adopted.
Madam Speaker, it's my understanding the amendment is not ready. I move to special order this to an appropriate time tomorrow, if that's okay with the chair. Perfect.
Question before the House is a special order House Bill 249.
It's fine, Madam Speaker.
But there's a process we go through to include everybody. And all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. The ayes have it. House Bill 249 has been special ordered until the appropriate time tomorrow. Special order calendar number 16. Clerk will read the first bill.
House Bill 325, adult education, high school diploma by examination, requirement and study. Favorable report is amended, adopted.
Yes, gentlelady from Baltimore County. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was having trouble hearing you. So I took a look at this bill for purposes of an amendment, trying to figure out why we would not want people who get a GED to speak English, because you know, the high school diploma is supposed to make our children college or career ready, and I just don't think there's an amendment that can fix it. So I will save my comments for third reader. Thank you for allowing me to look at it.
Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. Special order calendar number 17. Clerk, read the bill.
House Bill 872, residential real property, tenant's right of first refusal, favorable report adopted.
Maker of the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have no amendments. My questions have been answered.
Okay. Are there any additional amendments to the bill or to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered printed for third reading. That ends the work at the desk. Committee announcements, appropriation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Appropriations Committee will have budget hearings at 1 o'clock. Please listen also for subcommittee announcements.
Judiciary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, the House Judiciary Committee will have a briefing with the Department related to an audit of the Department of Juvenile Services starting at 12 noon, and then we'll start bill hearings after that. There will be a 30-minute break in between the DJS briefing and bill hearings.
Environment and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Environment and Transportation Committee will meet for bill hearings at 1 o'clock.
Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Ways and Means Committee will meet for bill hearings at 1 p.m.
Economic Matters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Economic Matters Committee will continue bill hearings at 1 p.m. Again, that's 1 p.m.
Health and Government Operations.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Health and Government Operations Committee will meet at 1 p.m. for bill hearings. Thank you.
Any subcommittee announcements? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Education and Economic Development Subcommittee will meet at 2 p.m. in the Appropriations Room.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Health and Social Services Subcommittee on Appropriations will be meeting at 2 p.m. in the Prince George's County Delegation Room for budget hearings. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Business Regulations Subcommittee will meet tomorrow afternoon after the committee bill hearing. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
The Appropriations Subcommittee, Transportation and the Environment will meet at 2 p.m. today.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Government Operations and Health Facilities Subcommittee will meet twice today. The first meeting will be at 11:15. The second meeting will be at 4 p.m. Thank you.
All right. Any other subcommittee announcements? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Environment Subcommittee will be meeting today virtually at 5 p.m.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Election Law Subcommittee will meet tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Housing and Real Property Subcommittee will be meeting today at 6 p.m. Housing and Real Property, 6 p.m. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any other subcommittee announcements? Seeing none. Okay. Any delegation announcements? Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Prince George's County Education Committee will meet tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. via Zoom.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Harford County Delegation will meet tomorrow in person in the Harford County Delegation Room, 302 at 9 a.m.
Any other delegation announcements? Seeing none. Any caucus announcements? Not a single one, huh? Okay. All right. We'll go for the Black History Moment from the good delegate representing Prince George's County.
Good morning, Madam Speaker, colleagues, and guests in the gallery. I am honored to present today's Black History Moment. I quote, "At the very same time that America refused to give the black folks any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with the economic floor. But not only that, did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agencies to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they can mechanize their farms. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars of federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought lift himself up by his bootstraps. By Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stated that when he talked about economics. What was Dr. King referring to when he said land-grant colleges? The Morrill Act of 1862, also known as Land-Grant College Act, established a network of land-grant colleges in the United States. The act was signed into law by President Abraham Lincoln on July 2nd, 1862. Many of these institutions are flagship universities today. However, black folks obviously was not allowed to attend the white land-grant universities that contributed to so much generational wealth. So in 1890, Congress passed and signed into law the second Morrill Act, which included the stipulation that African Americans were to be included in the United States land-grant university higher education system without discrimination. There are 19 institutions that were created in 1890, colleagues, in states like Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Texas, South Carolina, Arkansas, North Carolina, Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. And guess where else? Where we don't think we align with those states? Obviously, there was discrimination here in Maryland. So there was a land-grant institution created right here in Maryland, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, which did not receive the same funding for the land-grant institution, University of Maryland, College Park, because black folks were not allowed to attend. Land grants, but unequal. To be land grant but unequal is a strange place to be for a land grant system that was created to bring education to agriculture and industrial citizens in each state. UMES is a public 1890 land grant historically black college that embraces diversity. UMES opens its doors on September 13th, 1886, when it was known initially as the Delaware Conference Academy, under the auspice of the Methodist Episcopal Church. In 1890, UMES became known as Morgan College. The same year, federal legislation passed to support the historically black institution that offer instruction in agriculture and related fields. With the adoption of the second Morrill Act, the industrial branch of Morgan in rural Somerset County started receiving funding through the state of Maryland and eventually was re-christened to Princess Anne Academy. This federal source of money also created a relationship with the Maryland Agricultural College, now the University of Maryland College Park, although on the campus of Princess Anne, it remained Morgan College. The joint management arrangement enabled the state to continue offering a land-grant education to white students attending College Park while offering black students the same type of instruction that was referred to earlier. In 1948, the name changed to Maryland State College and then renamed to the University of Maryland Eastern Shore in 1970. A change in governance structure initiated by the legislator, this body, placed UMES under the University of Maryland system in 1988. Subsequently, the system was renamed the University System of Maryland in 1997. This is why HBCU funding and supporting our HBCUs here in Maryland is a priority for the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland, because we recognize that it has created, proper education has created generations of wealth for white individuals that black folks have to catch up to. We recognize that education is the great equalizer. Madam Speaker, thank you, and this is your Black History Moment.
Any personal or guest announcements? Yes.
Madam Speaker, as an alumnus of the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, I appreciate greatly the remarks the good delegate made today. And in the same tone, we have guests here wearing blue jackets, gold lettering, the FFA Association for Maryland, from all parts of the state of Maryland. I happen to have Worcester Tech here, their chapter, and I'd like the body to give them a great greetings. Thank you.
Good. Any other personal or guest announcements?
Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I have two cousins in the gallery. They're here for Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated Day. Pamelia Moore, she'll stand, and then also Kendra Brown. Ask everybody to give them a warm welcome.
I don't know who got up first. Who got up? Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, we have actually one of our four HBCUs today, Coppin State University, located in the 40th District, is having their day in Annapolis. You'll see them in the halls wearing their blue and gold. And they are also hosting a legislative reception from 11 to 1:30 p.m. at the Banneker Douglas Tubman Museum. So I hope you can join us.
Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Please join me in welcoming students from the Baltimore Youth Arts Advocacy Council. Please stand up. They're here in Annapolis today to champion investment in the arts and arts education in Maryland, and they're joined by Arts Every Day and Maryland Citizens for the Arts.
Gentleman from Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, everyone. Visiting today in Annapolis are 180 students enrolled in agricultural education programs at their local middle and high schools. These students are leaders in their local chapters and just a few of the over 2,400 members of the Maryland FFA Association. This year, Maryland FFA is celebrating their 97th anniversary. Nationally, over 1 million students hold membership in the FFA. We look forward to meeting many of them throughout the day. Colleagues, help me welcome them to our state capitol. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to embarrass a former member of this body who I just saw in the gallery, former Delegate Chair Emeritus Maggie McIntosh. I saw you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, the Maryland State Police Explorer Program is visiting today. I'd like to give a shout out to my niece from Cambridge, Maryland, Ashley Byers. Thank you.
Yes.
Madam Speaker. So I would like my fellow Emerge Maryland alumni who are on the floor to stand with me to welcome. We're gonna get there. Okay. So in the gallery, in the front gallery, we have our Emerge Maryland 2025 class. Emerge Maryland is a 5-month training program. It's the state's premier organization that recruits, trains, and provides powerful network of Democratic women who want to not only run for office, but win elected office. So please welcome our new cohorts.
Yes. Yes.
Madam Speaker, thank you so much. Colleagues, I would invite you to join me in wishing my colleague, my teammate, and someone that I've known since he was just a pup, Jazz Lewis, a very happy birthday. I'm sorry. Permission to use the delegate's name.
A little late now.
I got excited. So if you would.
Speaking of the same, I'd like to recognize Minority Whip. Can you stop talking? I'm recognizing you. Huh?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, if you want your bill or bond initiative introduced without suspending the rules, they must be in the hopper by this Monday, March 3rd by 5 p.m. Okay, so if you want your bill in without suspending the rules, it has to be in the hopper this Monday by 5 p.m. Thank you.
Anyone else getting up? Yes.
This
You're
is
back
it for
again.
today.
Are you sure?
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Speaking of colleges, and while I just went on, it talked about the importance of UMES. I am a graduate of the University of Maryland, College Park. And since it's Alpha Kappa Alpha Day, I wanted to recognize one of the charter members of the Alpha Kappa Alpha chapter, Theta Nu chapter, which I came through. Cheryl Petty Garnett is in the gallery. Can you please just wave? And she was one of the nonprofit leaders of the year for the state of Maryland. And I also just want to recognize my president of my current chapter that I'm involved of. Christy, are you still here? Christy Matthews, you still here? Okay, she might have left to go do the business of the sorority. Thank you. Thank you.
Here?
On the other side. Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Is there any other remarks from anyone sitting on that floor? Seeing none, quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? Clerk will take the call. There be 133 members present, and the House is still in session, recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stands adjourned until Thursday, February 27th at 10 a.m., legislative date February 24th.